Today to the webinar, and this webinar is going to be an introduction to component data management with OrCAD Capture CIS and CIP. Like Kelly said, my name is Jeff Vimes. I'm an application engineering team leader for EMA Design Automation. What we're going to be doing first of all is just to go, let me just go ahead and give you a little bit of an intro of EMA. EMA really, we are a Cadence channel partner, and we are exclusively for North America for the channel partner, for the Cadence channel partner. One thing that that EMA does do is that we do exclusive sales and support for the OrCAD products, and also support the sell the Cadence tools. We are also an Autodesk authorized value-added reseller, and that happened around the 2009 timeframe, and we sell it throughout certain territories within North America. So today, what we're going to be doing is, first of all, we're going to briefly go through a slideshow presentation, and then we'll go into an application demo. But we'll briefly go through some slides first and give you some information there. We'll discuss component management issues. Also, with those component management issues is the solution to those issues. And we'll also go in and we'll discuss the OrCAD Capture CIS product, along with the EMA's Component Information Portal product. And we'll briefly go over the enterprise link, and throughout this presentation, we'll definitely address some information on that. Also, we'll have an application demonstration at the end of the presentation, the slide presentation. So first of all, what I'd like to do is I'd appreciate the opportunity to actually take a polling question. This polling question is what version of OrCAD Capture you're currently using. And that's if you're using like 16.5, 16.3 or before then. And if you don't know, please just notify that on the polling question. Okay, great. Also, what I would like to do is find out the next polling question. And that's going to be, do you use CIS or have a centralized database? And that, again, just answer those questions based on what you have with CIS or centralized database. Okay, great. Thank you very much for those polling questions. The next thing what I want to go over are the common customer issues. So EMA has dealt with these following customer issues over the years, and we have addressed ways to improve these type of problems in the capture environment. And those issues are inaccurate component and corporate data causing hours of hand editing bomb spreadsheets. Also, inefficient part requests and approval processes resulting in accumulated redundant parts in the system. Endless ECO changes due to part issues. Multiple libraries containing duplicate CAD symbols. Incorrect PCB footprints that get linked to a schematic part because of a disconnect and can cause a disconnect between the CAD symbol and the component data. Eventually, it leads into netlist issues. Also, like poor integration to corporate systems, and that requiring the search of different data sources for part selection. One of the things that is a big issue also is the critical design gaps in component part data, what the visibility is in whether you have a division that's local, a national division, or global locations, and that would even include contract manufacturers, for example. Also, costly production delays because of respins due to an inaccurate environment compliance information. And also obsolete design parts or long design lead time because of incomplete life cycle component information. Okay, with the EMA solution, utilizes CIS with CIP, OrCAD Capture users can now have a way to solve these types of issues, plus address many more. So the first component of our system and our solution is going to be OrCAD Capture CIS. So CIS, which is an add-on to Capture, what it will do is it will give the Capture user a way to manage their electronic parts on their Capture designs. It allows a benefit of a unified, compact library. Also, it ensures part selection from a centralized library that promotes sharing and reuse of part information. It also eliminates duplication and separate part libraries. And with Capture CIS, you get something called the CIS Explorer, which that feature allows part research and selection of preferred parts. And this can include relational data, multiple manufacturers, symbol views, footprint views, datasheet views. It also comes with the Part Manager, and this is an essential part of CIS, and that's where we can do part verification between the schematic and the database information. CIS allows the addition of and the capability to be able to track new parts. Also, and one of the biggest benefits that we noticed that from our customer base is that you can build some materials very rapidly and accurately right from the Capture schematic design. And then finally, CIS supports assembly variances for different stuffing options for your designs. The next essential part of our solution is CIP. CIP is the Component Information Portal product, and EMA has dealt with many years of implementation. We have lots of experience with our customer base, and what we did was we developed our CIP product, and it really is an essential tool for those Capture CIS users. CIP, it's equipped with an off-the-shelf CIS database, plus it has the database schema, which includes the foundation library of components, complete with symbols and footprints and data sheets. Also, CIP is really a nice way for purchasing and librarians and non-EE types to be able to just access the user interface to get information directly from the CIS database. This interface also makes it extremely efficient to manage the CIS database itself. CIP is integrated with the Capture CIS temporary part process. It has an administrative capability, so admin types can administer database privileges based on the administrative responsibilities. And then CIP also gives the user capability to track and view part changes. There is a CIP importer that is a utility that's available for download, and this will allow data to be imported from an external CSV file. Now that's pretty powerful because it's also very handy because you can get bulk data or like say for example a current item master loaded into the CIS database. And also, since CIP is a web-based solution, the application promotes remote database accessibility. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to open up another polling question. And this polling question is, what part distributors do you actually, does your company use? And that's what we do is we have Aero, DigiKey, Future, Mouser, and Avnet. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that polling question. One thing about CIP is CIP, again, gives you a lot of functionality and benefits when it comes to managing that CIS database. But from what one of the biggest benefits that we see with our customers is the need for getting parametric data from the distributors, being able to access the distributor information. So CIP populates your CIS database directly from the real-time online distributor parts database, which includes DigiKey, Newark, Farnell, Future, Mouser, and Aero. Also, the engineers can search and select distributor part parametric data right within the OrCAD Capture CIS. So once that data gets into the database, now you have a great way to directly relate that data right to your capture schematic. Capture and you can capture and update the part cost and quantity on hand information at any given time. So there's a definite benefits there, and as we go through the presentation, see that in the demonstration also. One of the other things you notice is that down here in the one block we have something that we actually a solution that we offer, and it's called Silicon Expert. What Silicon Expert is that it's a subscription service, and what it is to aid in the managing part obsolescence for your company's company parts that you manage. So Silicon Expert actually has relationships with a vast majority of those part manufacturers. And so what happens is that companies can track when a part goes obsolete, and also they can eliminate respins caused by part obsolescence and provide insight to life cycle information, PCN notifications, and searching for like parts. So it's pretty powerful as a subscription service. Also, this service ensures that the engineering team is using parts that are not scheduled for imminent obsolescence. And then you get a heads up of that part in your database that's being impacted by the end of life, or some other kind of notice, and remove that part before it's used in your designs or designed in any of those future projects. I'd like to go ahead and open up now for another polling question, and that is, does your company have an ERP or an enterprise resource planning system or a PLM system? Okay, thank you very much for that. So that brings up the next part of our presentation, and that is our Enterprise Link product. The Enterprise Link, what it does is it provides synchronization between the component information system, or CIS, and component data stored in an external system, like an ERP system or a PLM system or product lifecycle management system. This product, what it does is it delivers corporate information to the designers, to the design engineer's desktop via the Enterprise Link. It enables engineers to design with the corporate approved parts, and it prevents unnecessary new part introductions and associated administrative burden. So it definitely has quite a few benefits there. So when you're dealing with the Enterprise Link, one thing that it will do is it is integrating the ERP and PLM, but what it does is it mirrors corporate part information or data into the engineering environment. It really enhances the engineering decisions by accessing corporate part data like part, cost, availability, lead time in the engineering design environment. One thing that your company is going to get cost savings through part consolidations, opportunities by eliminating unnecessary new part introductions in that area. Plus, the solution minimizes administrative overhead by streamlining that whole part introduction process also. The Enterprise Link is going to take data from the underlying enterprise corporate database and puts it into a read-only mode, and then it integrates that corporate part data right delivered to the CIS database, which CIS users can access, and also CIP. So when you look at this whole system together, one thing that happens is it really gives you, what it does is it ties everything together with CIS and CIP with the Enterprise Link, and what it's going to do, it's going to provide you a closed-loop controlled environment that really eliminates manual BOM creation and errors. So if you think of it this way, you're placing good components and you're generating good BOMs. Okay, and it gives you a lot of capabilities there and enhancements to the whole flow. These next couple screenshots are what the data looks like inside of CIS. Now, I know I haven't showed CIS in the demo yet, but this will give you an idea. So if you look at data, it's basically blank. Data doesn't exist from the corporate system. But when you apply Enterprise Link, and you can look at things like the part number and the quantity and things that are more schematic oriented or non-type of corporate-centric information. But then when you apply the Enterprise Link, what it does is it applies that information, even vendor information. If you house vendor information in a corporate system, that becomes available also. So it adds a lot of benefit and capabilities right within that environment. So the next thing what I'd like to do is give you a demonstration of the component management flow, and that's going to be using Capture CIS and EMA CIP product. And we're going to go through and we'll give you an overview of CIS, and then we'll also go through the whole new part process and distributor access using the CIP distributor capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Capture product now. So my Capture product today actually has the CIS option. That CIS option actually opens up like what our capabilities were that we described in the presentation earlier. So now you get the capabilities to be able to access that database of information. Okay. Today we are using also version 16.5. If anybody's unaware of the new release in 16.5, it's actually a very exciting release for our Capture users, because now you have the capability to be able to have a landing page when you come right into the tool, or start page. That start page gives you immediate access to, like, say, for example, your channel partner or the individual, your company that's responsible. In this case, North America, it's EMA. And also, we have something called the Marketplace. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail with the Marketplace today, but that's just a way that we can get, now we can download free and paid apps, and also get a lot of other information right directly from one area inside of our Capture tool. So, and what I'm going to also do is, during our demonstration, for those users that are interested, I'm going to be showing one of our apps that EMA's actually developed for our CIP product. I'm sorry, excuse me, for the CIP product. And also we'll show another app that involves highlighting a part based on the product's part status. And I will go through that during the demonstration. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to bring up a schematic page. And in our Capture environment, for our Capture users out there, we know that we can place a part from a library, and we can add information into the library, and we can add properties into the library, and we can save that information into our OLB file. Well, inside of our CIS environment, we really don't do it that way. What happens is that the properties, what we consider Capture properties, or parametric information, is housed in a centralized database. So what we're going to be doing, as opposed to going in and placing a part in Capture, we're going to place a database part. Simply, we're going to go in and right mouse button click and place database part. When we place that database part, one thing you'll notice is that that we have this tree view over here. The tree view itself allows us to be able to go in and see any part that's inside of our database. It's very powerful, because now we have total visibility of a centralized information that all of our users are pulling from, and it's being managed in a centralized location. And that's where we'll go through a little bit later, and we'll talk about CIP on how we can manage that information and create new parts and things like that. But from our Capture CIS perspective, this is the CIS Explorer. This gives us the capability to be able to search for parts. We have a tree structure over here. You can see how we can actually view parts. If I select a part down here, you saw earlier how things turn on. If it's green, that means I can place it in my design. One thing that happens is down here is the table view. The table view itself gives us the capability to be able to see any data that's in our database for that particular part. It also allows us to be able to, CIS allows us to be able to associate a PCB footprint and a schematic part. That information, if the schematic part's not there, I can't place it on my design. So it becomes very powerful now, because now I'm pulling from my centralized area that I don't have to worry about where that particular library is pulled from. Now, there is a lot of flexibility here, and I'll go through the demonstration. I'll show it to you when it comes to a new part, and we'll go through and we'll discuss that. But from placing a component, we also have the capability to be able to see the symbol. If we have multiple packages, we can select multiple packages. So if we have an FPGA and it's got 50 parts or 50 packages to it, we can select any of those when we place it in our design. We also have both a 2D front view of the top view of the part, and we also have a 3D view of the part in Capture CIS Explorer. Also, we have a relational view. This is extremely powerful to our users. One thing that happens is that we know we have common parts, and we have a common part number, but that common part number can have multiple distributors, multiple multiple manufacturers and manufacturer part numbers to it. So you can house all that information in the CIS database. Now, so in our database today, what we're going to be using is we're going to be using our out-of-the-box CIP solution. This is what comes with CIP. So if you purchase CIP, you have a total implemented a solution, and that's a very big benefit to our users because you don't need to know how to do database management. All of that's being done by our CIP product. Today, I'm also utilizing in my demonstration the starter library that comes with CIP. So this is all the data that you get. So if you're looking at part data, including data sheets, you can actually select the data sheet right within CIS Explorer. Becomes very powerful to be able to get that immediate information directly to the user's desktop. The next thing with this is that I can do a query. So let's do a query search. So say, for example, I'm going to search for any value that equals, let's say, 10 nanofarads. So one thing that the CIS Explorer will do is it allows for multiplier intelligence. It understands that a 0.01 microfarad is a 10 nanofarad component. So again, this kind of capability just adds a lot of functionality so that when I'm trying to find a part, I can find it pretty quickly. Also, if I want to do a multi-line query, I can go ahead and I can also include maybe a package size, and you can have different kinds of compare functions here. Maybe it's an 0603, and then what I can do is I can go ahead and select that, and I can streamline that in its entire search for the PCB footprint, or I'm sorry, the value and the actual package size. So I can do that for any of those. If I want to go through and I want to see anything that's got anything greater than 100 pins, I could do that. I could actually search for that. Once we have a particular part and we find a part that we want, we just click on it and place it in our design. Okay, it's up here. There we go. So now what we have is we have a CIS, an official CIS part placed in our design. And that's extremely important because now this part is being tracked by CIS. If it changes, I'm going to know about it. If the part properties are being transferred also from the database. And I'm just going to bring up the property editor briefly and just talk about it for a second. So CIS gives you the flexibility when you place a component to be able to change display properties. If the property is transferred, there's two different kinds of database components that are being placed. Properties that are parametric data in the database. That is transferred properties and non-transferred properties. So what you could do is you can set up with the CIS configuration file, you can actually set up what properties you want to transfer. Now the important part of this is that why don't I see all my manufacturers and all my descriptions? If you want that, you can. But you don't have to with CIS because later on when I show you how you do bill of materials, what it does is it merges data from the database with data that's in the schematic and puts it together, gives it out into a BOM report. That easy. So it's pretty efficient to do that. But again, the flexibility is if I wanted to have every single database property in my schematic part and place it in my design, I can do that. Okay, but you don't have to if you're just using it for bill of materials data. So what I just said earlier was that when I place that component, what does that mean now if something happens to this component a little bit later on down the line? Say, for example, a footprint name changes, or something happens to this particular part I placed. This is where we introduce something called the Part Manager in CIS. The Part Manager allows us to be able to, okay, I can take data, I can look at all my parts that are on my schematic, and what happens is that this allows me to get a part status of that particular part that's in my design. Now, the Part Manager has quite a few areas where we can actually address and do global changes. We can do lots of things like sorting. We can update the part status. So let's go ahead and look at that one first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an update all part status. When I do that, something comes up. It pops up and shows, hey, what's going on with this part? There's the PCB footprint property. Something's wrong here because in my schematic, it's a DIP 127. But in the database, somebody figured out, that was managing the database, said, hey, this is the wrong footprint name for this particular footprint. So I'm going to give it a new footprint name. I'm going to manage it. Now, for that individual to go through in a regular capture environment without CIS, you would have to notify all those users, figure out where that part was and everything like that. But with the Part Manager now, I can immediately find that part. I'm going to go ahead and hit no on this part, and let's let it update, and we'll see what happens. This is where we actually can see if a part is approved. This was a CIS placed part, so it's approved by CIS, but it's not current. And we can see immediately that the footprint that in our design is not updated yet. All the others turned green because they were matched, found. They matched with schematic information with what's in the database. Now, if I were to go in here now and right mouse button click and let's update this selected part, now what I can do is if I hit yes to this one, you're going to notice that this no longer contains a DIP 127, for example. It was incorrect. Now it's corrected. And let's go to that part. And if we go to that part and we view the properties in this, we can immediately see that the part is now updated to the right value to the database. So it's pretty powerful to be able to do that. A couple other things with the Part Manager. The Part Manager allows us to be able to go in and do global edits. Now, global edits are important because, say, for example, I have 100, maybe I have 500 bypass caps on the back of my board, and I need to change them all from an 0805 to an 0603, for example. I could simply go in and sort on that particular part number, find the part I'm interested in. I can select that part, and then what I can do is I can go through and link the new database part if necessary. And what's nice about it, CIS understands key fields. So say, for example, I wanted to see everything that was a 0.1 microfarad, it's going to give me every one of those down here that's 0.1. So it's a very powerful way to be able to go through and do these kind of global edits and to be able to do these selections easily and find the parts that I need. One of the other things that the the Part Manager does offer is the capability to be able to manage variances. And variances are one of the things that variances will allow you to do is they go through and give you the capability to be able to have one schematic and PCB layout or design associated with multiple assemblies with different stuffing options. One thing that will happen is that this CIS allows you to do variant management with it, so you can have do not stuff options, you can have different parts in there. Also, from a schematic view of things, say for example I go into view, go into variant view mode, you can immediately see how I can actually have graphical information directly associated with this particular design for this variant. And you can see, like, I can have do not stuff, a different color. I can do all different kinds of things in that, just to a visual indicator of that particular change in that variant. The other thing that the Part Manager does offer is it does offer the capability to be able to do the reports and the bills of materials. So the Part Manager really gets you all that information, and you do an update part status. When you do that update part status, you're pretty much ready to go with the bill of materials. Now, one thing the bill of materials will allow you to be able to do is it allows you to take information from the schematic and the database, merge them together. You can create your own output headers here. In my case, I have a bill of materials, and I can actually save templates here. I might have a DigiKey bomb only, or I might have a DigiKey Aero bomb, for example, in my demo today I'm showing. One thing that you can do is you have different kinds of reference options, and this is another nice thing that the bill of materials will do. It will actually allow you to list relational data fields. So our CIP solution with CIS allows you to be able to automate this entire relational information. So it definitely gives you a lot of capabilities there. So what you can do is you can easily go down and generate a bill of materials. You can directly do this to Excel, or you can do out to a CSV or a different kind of format. We'll let this run. We'll let it finish. And then we'll go ahead and we can view that. Again, this brings it out into Excel. All the information that I have in my headers is now made available, including I have actually field data from our CIP where we downloaded distributor data. We make that available also. So now you can see where the whole solution starts fitting together, where we're managing data in the database, we're downloading data from DigiKey and Aero, for example. We're making that available all the way through. So the bill of materials just adds an extra bit of benefit to be able to get that data outputted. One of the other things that I want to be able to show is also one of our apps. We'll also show a CIP. We actually offer CIP, which we'll go through that in just a minute. But one of the apps that I want to bring up is that we actually have an app. Let's go to the schematic page first so we can see it. So you're going to notice that in our, let me bring it out of the non-variant view mode. You're going to notice that I have this design, and this design has one symbol color, and that symbol color is really based on just the initial default color for the symbol. So we do have an app that will actually allow you to color those symbols, these symbol graphics, to match a particular status that we have for that particular part. This is where it becomes very important, because now what we can do is we can associate, and let's bring up the Part Manager again, and we can see that we can actually have a company part status directly populated into the database. In this case here, you can see in review, preliminary, and production, for example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the schematic, and let's go ahead and run our app. And this is a highlight parts by status app. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be able to specify colors for each one of those properties. Pretty powerful, because now I can get not just a Part Manager visualization, but I can also get a graphical, so I can plot out. And I can actually see if maybe something is a different color, whether it's maybe it's preliminary or in production review. Maybe it's even obsolete, for example. We could even do that. And we'll go ahead and we'll hit start. And we'll go to our schematic page. And here we can immediately see how my components turn different colors based on what those statuses are. It's just an application that EMA provides on the marketplace, but it has definite definite benefits when it comes to its graphical capabilities for those statuses. Okay, so now one of the things that we immediately see is we see how Capture actually allows us to be able to do part verification with the Part Manager, placing database components and things like that. One of the things that the entire solution together creates a great methodology for new part introduction. So say, for example, and this is where we're going to start introducing our CIP product. So the CIP product this is also another app we also provide for free. It allows you to actually include CIP directly inside of the Capture environment. So now you have that capability. This is a web-based application. You can launch it inside of Capture, or you can launch it outside in a web browser. Either way, it becomes a very effective way of doing it. Also, CIP, what we're going to do is, let's go back to Capture CIS briefly, and we're going to place a database part. Now we're going to create a new part. I'm going to go in and I'm going to query for a part, and I'm going to look for any value that equals 10.5 ohms. Now, 10.5 ohms in our today, what I'm using is I'm using the starter library. It has like 6,000 parts in it, and that includes PCB footprints, and schematic symbols, and data sheets, parametric data. One thing that will happen is that this particular part doesn't exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our entire flow from CIP using distributors all the way down through to the actual placement of this part as a temporary part, and I'm also going to release it in the system and make it a real part number. It's a great method to be able to control this entire part. And remember, when I'm creating a part, it's not released. It might exist, but it needs to get approved, and that's just a great methodology to be able to control these parts on my schematic. So first of all, what I'm going to do is, since I don't have it, let's go to our CIP tool, and I'm going to log into CIP. Now, CIP offers the capability to be able to go through and do logins for users that are in the CIP, in the CIS database. Now, as we go through and we log in, this now allows us to be able to go through and use CIP to use things like the distributor search I'm just going to hit in just a few seconds. But one thing about it is that now, as a user, I can be part of a controlled administrative environment. Very important for my data. Now, one of the underlying database here is SQL Server. SQL Server is what our database uses for CIP, along with the CIS database. That's all inside of SQL Server. You don't have to touch SQL Server at all. You don't have to be afraid of databases with CIP. It takes that fear away. It makes it very convenient, very easy to be able to go in and create users, user roles. Each one of our users might have a different function or a role based on what their required duties are. Say, for example, I'm a librarian. I want to be able to, do certain functionality. You don't want maybe purchasing agents who actually have capabilities to do in the system. So you can manipulate that if you're an administrator. So now let's go ahead. What we're going to do is we're going to use the distributor search first. Let's look for that. Let's look for that 10.5 ohm resistor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I can look in either Arrow, DigiKey, Future, Mauser, Newark. I can check different kinds of options here. I can do manufacturer part number search. I don't need manufacturer for my parts. I'll just use keyword. It might be something as a keyword where I can say it's a resistor. Maybe it's a 10.5 ohm. Maybe it's an 0603 part, for example. I can streamline the keyword I can do lots of tricks with the keyword also to be able to get that data from those distributors. It makes it really easy to do. I can check if it's in stock, RoHS compliant. I can check if it's other options also. I'll go ahead and hit search. And this is going to give me a results back. So what's happening when I hit search is it goes out to the internet. It goes to, in this case, an Arrow or DigiKey access area, web access area that those distributors make available for EMA and our products to communicate with. It sees that information, and then it gives it back to you in a result down here. Now, what's going to happen is that once I have the results, and you can see pricing, quantity on hand, description, manufacturer part number, so it gets me a starting point. Now, you can say, well, my distributor's not on there. But one thing that we find out from our users, and we tell our users, is this. This is information that's available for you to use. If you can find a part in here, why not use the parametric data? It will have the distributor that you're selecting as part of the distributor, but you can still use parametrics. So say, for example, maybe you have a manufacturer part number that's coming from Chemet, but you want it to come from a particular vendor. You could just go ahead and select the Chemet part and bring it in, get the parametric data that you need, and then you can put your distributor information on there if necessary. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these parts, and let's go ahead and select one. And now this looks like the part I want to use. This is the part I want to start with. It doesn't mean that I'm going to release this part. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means I want to create this as a temporary part. Things like distributor information, including the data sheet, including the picture, also the attributes or the common attributes. These are supplied by the distributors. We make them available now to the CIS user in the CIS database. So CIP is managing all this data once it's inside of our CIS database. So what we need to do is we need to get it in as a temporary part. So we need to put it somewhere. We need to say, hey, a capacitor is different than an IC that's different than a resistor, so I want to use the schema that's available with the resistors. I can create either a temp part or add it to an existing part. In my case, I don't even have the part yet, so I'm going to create it as a temp part. Once I create this temp part, now I have the capability to be able to say, okay, I need to associate a schematic symbol and PCB footprint. Now, the distributors, as of today, do not have printed circuit board footprints or the PCB editor footprints, or they do not have the OrCAD Capture OLB or schematic symbols. So what we do as a way is our method is to be able to allow you to see previously used symbols. Now, if we don't even have that, we can give it a new name, or we can just see previously used ones. Now, right here, you can notice that for a resistor, I have like 2 symbols in my resistor library that comes with CIP. Here's the benefit of CIS is that we only need one resistor symbol, basically. You might have networks and resistor networks and things like that, but from a basic component like a resistor or discrete resistor or capacitor or diode, for example, you can utilize very few of those symbols are even needed, but you can have thousands of resistors based on that one symbol. So it's pretty powerful. We can go ahead and we can select the one we want, and then we can also associate a PCB footprint. In this case, we have an 0603, so maybe I want to bring in a 1608. And then I can now go ahead and add this to my CIS database. Now, so what's actually happening now is that this particular component is now created as a temp part. A temp part is being logged into the system. You can see where Jeff created this temp part at this time. I can select it. It can be actually the other nice thing with CIP is it gives us notifications. So if we have if we do utilize email notifications in the system, our administrator can set up whether you can be included on this temporary part, or you can create different kinds of email notifications whether a part was deleted or created or changed. And so you can have that capability in there also. It just adds more capabilities within the CIS environment. So now we can see what's actually being transferred. We can see this new temporary part, TMP35. It's created. It's actually now transferring data from the distributor to our CIS database. Now, these are our common part area or part data for that particular part. And then we also have manufacturer data. We have quite a bit of compliance data down here. But that's if you want to populate that, you can. If you don't, you can definitely just get the basic information for a distributor, and that's what we provide from the in this case DigKey. The next thing what we're going to do is we can say, okay, this part's great, but what did it really happen in CIS? I want to place this on my design. I want to go with this. I don't want to wait until it gets approved. So what I can do is I can go back to CIS, my CIS Explorer, and let's just research that part again. I know what I did wrong. I apologize for that. I got ahead of myself here. One thing, if we look at CIP, let's go back to CIP. You notice that I selected a 10.5K by accident. So, for the sake of the demo, we'll leave this 10.5K, and let's go ahead and go back to our CIS Explorer here. Let's make this 10.5K. There we go. We should be able to find it here. There we are. And now you can see my my temporary part 35 that comes up. And now what's nice about this is we can actually see what's being transferred, like the data sheet that comes from DigKey, the data that's initially being transferred. We can now add it to our design, and we can go ahead and run with this. Okay, this is a way that we can go in. We could start designing this particular device if we wanted to. Okay, now the part manager. Let's look at the part manager, and we're going to notice that this part is a temporary part. So the temporary part now for this 10.5K ohm resistor is going to be usable. All my users can see it. They have visibility to this part. They can use it on their design. You're going to know it's a temporary part, and it's tracked that way. It's always a temporary part. It will stay a temporary part. Now, let's go ahead in the future a little bit. Let's go back to CIP, and we'll go ahead and we'll make some changes here. Let's go ahead and release this part. Let's say for example, I log in as either a librarian or gatekeeper or somebody that's responsible for those parts. And I can actually edit that part now. I have certain functionality like I can make number of pins, maybe my component part status is released, for example. I can go through and do certain things like that. I can give it different information here. Oh, and by the way, our CIP product even allows other enhancements like auto build functionality, so it can read part data that's here. So you can format your description fields, and you can format your part type fields. So again, it becomes pretty powerful because now I can take away that burden of being able to know this formatting. Also, we can support PSpice information like PSpice templates. So if you're a PSpice user, you can add your template information in there, your model name, other information. We can also add in additional manufacturers if we wanted to. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do at this point, though, is I'm going to go ahead and release this part. I'm going to call this a real part number, and we'll go ahead and we'll release this part just for the sake of the demo. We'll go ahead and release it. And then we can also add additional manufacturers if we wanted to. Maybe I have a Jeff part. Maybe manufacturer Jeff with a Jeff part number. Maybe this is my own part or something, an internal part or something that's not supported to distributors. We can go ahead and add that in there. So what we've done now is we've created a few changes and we managed this part. We didn't have to even touch a database. Now if we go back to the part manager and we run this again and we do an update all part status, what it's going to do is it's going to tell us, hey, it's no longer a temporary part. Things have changed. It's now a real part number. What do you want to do? Well, sure, I'll go ahead and hit yes. And now we have an actual release component for my 10.5K ohm resistor. So it becomes very powerful now. So that's a great method to be able to now communicate that information between users and also getting that data back from, getting that data from the CIS database and watching it through its life cycle and what's happening to that part. So we can definitely track it with the part manager. Now, from the CIS, from a CIS perspective, saying, well, I don't even have distributor information. What if I just have a symbol? What's really nice about this is that what we can do, say from example from a schematic page, what I'm going to do is, let me go ahead and bring up we can go ahead and bring up any part here. It doesn't matter. Maybe we have an op amp here. We'll bring up an op amp and let's place this on our design. Now we can either use, by the way, CIS does come with active parts. It's an online symbol library of 2.5 million parts. So if you need to get schematic symbols with some minimal parametric data, you can get it from active parts. You can use any part, like say for example I have this part that's in my design, and it's not a CIS part. So what I can do is I can simply select it. I can go to Edit, Derive Database Part, and now what I'm going to do is I can put it in my IC. Now we're going to notice that TMP36 is my next part. It's going to create. And then, say for example, I have, maybe this is my demo part. We'll call it just for the sake of the demo here. We'll do that. We can even include a footprint. Maybe we have an SO8 in our library, and we want to go ahead and put that in there. We can go ahead and apply that in there if we wanted to. Derive the part. Go ahead and use it. It's a temporary part. Doesn't matter. But let's go back to CIP and see what happens to that part. So if we look at our temp parts, we can now notice that I have my IC in there. It is a temporary part. It can be used, or you can simply say, I don't want this as a temporary part. It already exists. Assign it a new number. That way, when you go back to CIS and go to the Part Manager, it's going to immediately recognize it doesn't exist. So therefore, you can select the actual part that you need to use in it. So it gives you a lot of capabilities there. A few more things, and we'll finish up. One thing that we can do is we can do database searches right within the CIP tool. So if we log into our web browser and we want to see CIS information, maybe we want to, we can even save these searches. Maybe I have a, I want to see every AVX part that's in my design. I can create these searches, select them, and have them available. And again, it's very powerful. And this report, I can actually export this report to Excel or CSV file. So now, if I'm just a component engineer, for example, and I just want to log into the tool and get data from my CIS database, I can do that. So it's very powerful to be able to do that and allow users to be able to access that information and control, what their capabilities are within the system. Just a few other administrative things, and we'll finish up here. One thing, the distributor administration in CIP allows you to be able to do distributor syncs. So with our distributor information, such as pricing and quantity that's included, that changes. It's extremely dynamic. We can sync that up. We can make that available. We can change that in the CIS database so that when we do our bill of materials, it gives us the capability to be able to get an accurate pricing of that particular item on my BOM. Also, the other thing that we have in our user preferences is that we have the capability to be able to do user fields. Those user fields are 10 user fields for each one of those database tables that we have. We can also have different pricing based on geographical codes or locations. And then also another thing that's really nice in the tool, and let's look at that real part number that I created. One thing that we have is that with this real part number, we can actually view the history of this part. So it will give us a red line of those particular changes or information of the particular fields that have actually changed. So what we do is we track the history for that particular component, and then also we can see the manufacturer history when we add it, and you see where I added my Jeff part, and it gives me the date and time that I did that and who did it. One other thing is that we do have the advanced export capabilities, which is a way that we can import a bill of materials, and then we can associate data with that so that we can actually create bill of materials directly from, or we can import a BOM, and then we can associate CIS data with that BOM and then export it out. At this time, what I would like to do is I would like to go up and open it up for any questions that anybody might have on the line. And let me go ahead, and I think you should be good to go. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. Hello, Martin. I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions that you have. Okay. And Patricia, do you have a question? All right. What I'd like to do is, if there's, I don't see that I have any other questions. Hey, Kelly, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you see any? I don't see any other questions in there. Do you?
I don't see any there. I see some written here. I think maybe it would be good to explain how somebody would go about getting CIS and CIP as far as the different packages, just very briefly. We have a lot of questions based on that.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and do that. That's a great question. Thank you, Kelly. So what happens is that Capture CIS is actually a Cadence product. So CIS is an option. You would purchase that, and we do have promotions right now that deal with both Capture CIS and CIP. And CIP is essentially, it's a product, so you would purchase it, and you could purchase these as bundles, and there are definitely some discounted prices going on right now. And that should, and this information really helps you, because what you can do is once you get the system and you install it, you pretty much have a CIS environment. Was there any other questions on there?
Let me just take a look.
I'm trying to drag some of these questions myself here.
It does look like there is a number of typed questions here, Jeff. If you want to take a look, you can choose a few.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a couple here we can do. Like for example, here's one. Can I pull can I pull a 100 ohm 0603 resistor at the same time from the distributor into the database, or do I have to do it 100 0603 resistors, a series? Okay, that's a good question. So right from CIP, the recommended process would be that you could go in. The distributors are only one at a time currently. But one thing that that you can do is you can actually go out to, say, for example, DigiKey, and you can get a list of all of those components, and you can export out to like Excel, and then you can actually use our importer to import a whole load of a series components in if you wanted to. Like maybe you have 500 or 100 resistors, you could do that. So the importer would be a way to do that with it. Let's see, some of the other questions here. Okay, one of the things with the variant mode, and that just goes up to, and go ahead back to my screen here. It seems like the question is, let's see, yeah, so how do you invoke the variant view mode? So you can go to, so once you're in the, you have to be into the schematic page, and then you would go to view, variant view mode, and that would bring up the variant view mode you're interested in. If you need to manage the actual variant itself, you do that within the Part Manager interface. If you want to include the manufacturer part number inside of the part onto the schematic, what we do in CIP is we provide in the area we have a temporary part, the temp part manufacturer part number. Those are more common information that can actually be added to the schematic or transferred to the schematic design. And then there's another one here that says, oh, okay, this is a good question. Is this only available in the EMA OrCAD flow, or is this functionality also available in the Cadence Design Entry CIS flow? Great question, actually. So what happens is that the Design Entry CIS product is essentially the same architecture as the OrCAD Capture CIS product. So yes, that functionality is available. You can use CIP with the Design Entry CIS flow. And by the way, any of the questions that we don't get answered today, please feel free to contact, you can contact EMA through, let me go ahead and bring up a slide here. And let's do this. I think we have one more polling question I'd like to get out before. Let me go ahead and bring up my polling questions. And what I'd like to do is do one more polling question, if you don't mind. And I'd like to see which topics would you like to see in an upcoming webinar. If anybody else is online, let us know, please. I appreciate answering these polling questions. These help definitely, especially in this poll right here, it's going to help us in producing our next webinars. Thank you very much for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact EMA at this information right here, at the phone number, or also visit us online. That way, if we don't get your questions answered, either typing in or typing in a question or through the phone today, definitely let us know. We'd be more than happy to answer all your questions. And again, how are we doing on time, Kelly?
We're good. It's 5 after 2.
So we have some more time to answer questions, do you think?
Sure, you can keep answering questions. Looks like a number of people are still on the call.
Okay, great. All right, let me go ahead and bring up these questions again here. Let's try to follow through with them a little bit. I know some of you probably, I know that we're trying to get some of these answers for you. Okay, here's one. How is Silicon Expert integrated, and is it usable directly? Silicon Expert is actually a subscription service. That information actually resides at their facility. They're going to email you notification on PCN alert. Then that information is emailed to you, and then you would, at the current state, out of the box, you would go ahead and manually put that PCN information into your CIS database. We have CIS, not CIP. Can we use CIS Explorer Active Parts Portal? Yes, you can. The Active Parts Portal, again, is a way that you can get symbol information. The Active Parts Portal will not manage the CIS database, but that is something that you can get. You can extract data from. So if you need to get information from it, you can use the Active Parts Portal. Are you going to have mil-spec numbers available, i.e. resistors, etc.? Not currently. We do not have those available, and I do not have any information on that, if that will be available or not. Is there any sort of regular audit process to verify that the information provided in the database is correct? The only information that we provide is that we tie to is that the database itself is, once you download the data, it's your responsibility. We don't do any kind of auditing in the background of that at all. Not through CIP or CIS out of the box. We don't do that. Can you set a default query search? I would like part number to be that default. You can specify the part number as the key field, and you can also specify, I didn't show earlier, as you can save these queries also. So if you want to save part number as a query search, you could do that. I'm trying to get some others here. Are today's slides available for attendees? Yes, they will be available for attendees. So we'll put together, actually, the slides that I'm presented today, the slides that we're going to make available will have a lot more content in it because I give you a lot more extra added information there so you can have as a reference. So we'll definitely be, a good slide deck for you to use as a reference. Good question. This is about Silicon Expert. If you're already a subscriber to Silicon Expert, do we still need it? Yes, you do. Whether you're a subscriber, whether you have Silicon Expert or you don't have Silicon Expert, you'd still need the subscription in order to get obsolescence information. To get the integration to the tools, we currently the way it is it's part of a solution to get the information, but it's really not integrated directly to the CIS database out of the box. A good question is, how do you integrate Design Entry CIS to an ERP system? What we do is we utilize the Enterprise Link product. The Enterprise Link product looks at a data source of information from the ERP system. That ERP system is made available from your ERP system itself, whether it's SAP or it's Microsoft Dynamics, whatever it is. You provide us the data access area for us to get information from, and then what we do is we read that information through either an ODBC or a CSV table data source, and we bring that into it. It's really a unidirectional. We don't write data back to the ERP, the enterprise-wide system. We just basically read that one-way information, but that information is constantly changing, so our Enterprise Link is constantly synchronizing with that corporate data. Do you offer a CIP trial? Yes, we do. We have a virtual instance that we can provide to you. CIP, it's an entire system. All ready to go. We give you a login, and you can go through and you can trial out. You can get a trial of CIP. One thing about it is there's database setups and things like that associated with it, but our virtual machine that we have for CIP is a great way to be able to evaluate that tool. Just let your sales person know about that. Is mean time between failures rates listed, or will users need to add that as a user-defined field within CIP? You would need to add that currently as a user-defined field in CIP. Do you offer CIP CIS training for administrators? Actually, we offer it a couple different flavors of training. We actually have a virtual training, which is very economic because you don't have to actually go somewhere. We do have a great virtual training. We have a virtual training, the capabilities there. We also have on-site training. And we offer that for companies that want to, train a large amount of people, and they don't want, to have users. They want to have something in house, so we can do that for you also. Let's see if there's any more questions here, and we'll finish up. Let's see. I'm just trying to get some of the ones that we haven't answered on through the typed questions. Go back up here. We got. Kelly, I think we have a lot of them addressed. There's one. I find the distributor part number to be to be too accurate. The digit key specifies a part number with a quantity, maybe 5,000 for a 7-inch reel. I don't care about quantities as purchasing's issue. How do I just get generic manufacturing part number for a part? Okay, great question. So currently we do not offer a way to strip out any of the real information that's in there, or purchasing information. So what you would have to do is basically download that information and create that part yourself. You could do that though. You could take that part and just download it and then change that part number if you wanted to and wipe out the tape and reel information. So you can still use the parametric data. It's just that you might have to modify of a more generalized generic part number, a manufactured part number. There's a question about a user that has this contract manufacturer who may have their own pricing agreements and sourcing. How relevant is this to our company? I guess from this particular question, so if you have a we do not integrate to the contract manufacturers have their own pricing. If they use something like Newark, or I think Newark has it. I think that some of the other, I don't know if Arrow has it or not, but you can give it a customer key and a customer key code, and then that information will immediately be reflected in the pricing and availability.
Hey Jeff, does it look like that's most of the questions?
I think that's it. I think that's it. Again, let's see. I think we're good to go here.
Okay, sounds good. And just want to remind everybody we will be posting this recording on the EMA website by the end of the week if you have any interest in watching it again or pointing other colleagues to the viewing. So thank you very much for coming. Jeff, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, just keep it in mind that on that last screen there, if you want to contact EMA, go ahead and use that phone number or the online website we offer. And I appreciate everyone's attendance today, listening to me talk for an hour and 15 minutes here. And everybody have a great day, and talk to you soon. Bye.